Growing up on a ranch makes you independent pretty fast.
God has the ability to keep the rain falling.
Plants need water, cattle need water, people need water.
And water has always been the challenge, I think.
It's time for a check of the markets here on KFRM. The feeder cattle trade continues to be active today as ranchers deal with record low cattle numbers, and we continue in the midst of this record drought.
On today's show on KFRM, we'll be talking water. Whether your people, your livestock, your industry, or your towns, water has always been precious here in Kansas. Whatever you want to talk about today on water, it's your show. I've got John Siebert on the line from X Diamond Ranch by Florence. What's your thoughts today about water?
That's your life support. That's what makes your operation work. If you don't have water, you're out of business.
Are you involved with cattle through the Flint Hills?
The Siebert's always been in the cattle business. Great-great-granddad, Christian Siebert, moved here 1875 or 1880.
In addition to running cattle, I understand that you raise horses as well.
Cattle, horses. I'll be out here when I got a mare ready to pull. I'll bring my lawn chair out and I'll sit there in the stall with her all night long.
You helping it along, I think you get a great sense of accomplishment.
You really get to know the reason you're out here and the things you really love.
John, what is your concern about water?
Well, Kyle, what I'm worried about with water is just not having enough. It's just running out. We depend a lot on water out here in our ponds for watering pastures and the creek water. And like right now, if you walk down to my creek right now, there's no water. It's bone dry. Been dry for, going on 3 years now. Everybody that depends a lot on pond water and creek water don't have it.
Drought can be terrible to manage for. It's almost impossible to haul water all summer long on an economic basis. And there's just huge uncertainty. When will it rain again? Will it rain again? And how much will it rain?
It's a cycle. I'm pretty sure it is. They've seen droughts back in the 50s that were terrible. You've seen in the 30s, wet cycles, dry cycles. Now we got this global warming and everything. There is some warming going on.
Do you think that this current dry period is part of climate change?
The ice caps are melting, at a faster rate than they ever have. You got to think about all that. Can't be a closed mind.
It's just hard for me to believe that our short time on Earth can have that much impact.
I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to get up every morning, and I'm going to presume it's a cycle. Maybe it's for peace of mind and self-preservation. I'm going to think that way.
I hear what you're saying. I hope you get some good rain soon. Well, we're going to be talking about water all day today, and we have Jason Backus. He's from Central Kansas in the Tampa area, and his family has been drilling water wells for generations. Some people have feet on the ground, boots on the ground. They have their boots in the mud, and we have the opportunity to find out the real story about what the water supply is like. Jason, what are you seeing in the Flint Hills during these dry times?
The water table just dropped everywhere because of the drought.
Really? I thought the water table was fairly stable in that area.
I'm pretty sure that it's dropped about everywhere. You know, we have a well just south of Florence that 175 foot deep, and it's dry. You go drive around, you can see all the ponds, they're dry, you know, and the water table has just dropped everywhere.
Well, you're on the ground in that area drilling the wells. You would know better than anyone else.
I hope it rains. It's going to get serious if it doesn't start raining, where our supply is so low right now.
Well, thanks for filling us in on that. We appreciate it, Jason. Okay, our next caller is Jenna Miller. She is from near Cottonwood Falls, Kansas, with the Cottonwood Ranch. Jenna, what do you want to visit about today when we're talking about water?
This drought is worse here than we have had it before.
You know, a prolonged drought has a huge impact on a lot of people.
Yes, and 2.5 years ago, we had to sell our cow herd because we didn't have enough water to take them through.
That must be hard.
So we always felt we were self-sufficient in that respect. And once you don't have water, there's no tap to turn on.
Well, most people don't think about their water until they don't have it. They don't think about the quality of it until they don't have quality, and they don't think about the quantity until they don't have quantity.
Water has continued to be the problem. We haven't been able to buy cows back since. Farming and ranching are not for the faint of heart. We've leased grass where we take care of someone else's cattle, but they're just here for a number of months.
As drought affects large geographies, the number of cattle that can be supported in that area has to drop because of lack of rain.
It's so complicated. You still need your water for anything that I can envision doing out here. You need water. I think climate change is what is happening now. I think that is affecting our weather here. In my time at this ranch, we have never been so dry.
Well, we're going to go to a break. We'll be back shortly. Join us back here for more talk about water on KFRM.
Hot and dry conditions persist with highs today in the upper 90s to low 100s and no rain expected.
Mother Nature's always throwing something different at you, and then you got to react to that. You can't irrigate these hills. You can't supplement water like you can on some flat farm ground or something like that. And we don't have the water deep enough. We can't bring it up anyway. And this is what they call the last sea of grass in the world.
You have cow herds that have been in the family for 3 and 4 generations that when there's no water, they have to be sold. It's like selling a family member.
It has been through the history of this area that we have droughts and we have floods, and it can be very, very brutal.
Talking about water, we're going to talk about the shortages, we're going to talk about management, we're going to talk on your show today about your water. I have Tracy from Florence, Kansas. We're talking water. What is your concern today?
One of the landmarks in the community and also on the historical register is our water tower.
Okay.
And it has the words 99.96% pure spring water written on it, which has been validated by people who have investigated that.
Really?
Our water supply comes from a spring. The city has a lease that was originally written as a 99-year lease. The current owners have not shown a great amount of interest in negotiating any kind of terms.
Since they didn't want to do anything, the family, I guess they didn't. Until later, I guess we're just going to have to wait.
I'm afraid if we wait too long, then it'll be their kids. And instead of the 4 or 5 people now, there may be 15 or 20 people that have to come to a consensus. There's always the chance that they could, decide not to renew. And then we're scrambling for another water source.
Should something happen that we lost Crystal Springs, then that would obviously be the end of Florence, because I don't think that's one thing that they could ever recover from.
It's all about water, because that's the strength of this whole land is water. It was formed by water that shaped the land, and it is what still nourishes it.
We depend on Mother Nature, and what's natural is already here. The native grass, which has been here for millions of years. And without water, the grass isn't going to grow. We can't run cattle on it. I guess you just wind up selling it out, move to town and rent an apartment and go on vacation.
Peggy Blackman from Marion is on the line. Peggy, what do you want to talk about today?
Hey, Kyle, I was listening to the radio station as I was driving around the Marion Reservoir watershed.
You work on watershed restoration, don't you?
Watershed restoration and protection strategy. I've been at this for 10 years now.
Peggy, what is your concern about water?
Bottom line, my main concern is water quality. Marion Reservoir serves as our public water source for our 3 major towns in our county. We have ample water out here, but we've been fighting the blue-green algae issue since 2003.
Could you say more about that?
The blue-green algae is actually caused by the amount of phosphorus and other nutrients in the sediment. And we have the toxicity levels caused by the dying blooms of the algae.
So what is the impact of the blue-green algae for you?
Well, we have to post the reservoir for no human contact. The cities have to make certain that the toxicity levels are now treated so that it doesn't go into the public water systems of the communities. And it's just been really a pain. In fact, when it first happened in 2003, the city of Hillsborough had to actually transport water.
Wow, that makes Marion Reservoir sound a lot like Lake Erie.
Yes, that's why we post all our swimming beaches. They're advised to be certain and clean the fish properly. There's a good possibility if you ingest the water at all, whether you're swimming or you're drinking the treated water and it has toxins in it, that you would have damage to your nervous system.
That's tough on the people and the whole economy of the area. Peggy, are you getting good cooperation from farmers around the reservoir?
We are working with the farmers to put in terraces, waterways, buffers, and therefore creating better water in the reservoir.
Well, it affects water quality because all this dirt, instead of staying where it's put, would end up washing down the ditches and eventually get down to the reservoir and just silt it in, and all the nutrients go down the reservoir too, like they said.
I understand you do a lot of programs educating kids about water and the environment.
Gave each of you a little planter thing, right? Yeah. Okay.
First thing I would tell children would be, we all live in a watershed.
I think she can do this.
Oh, that's okay. Now, you spray this one, okay?
I need this one too.
And however we treat the environment that we live in directly affects the water in our daily lives.
Water. There's a whole system, but it's underground. The water comes out from here and into the bucket.
Grass is really our product. We're feeding the cattle the grass, and the cattle are growing, having babies, and that ends up being our commercial product. But grass is really what we survive on. You'd like to have a rich prairie like we have, all the different grasses, all the different plant forms, and we try to burn it on an almost annual basis.
We burn to control the brush, the trees, and a certain amount of the early weeds.
It's much more difficult to control fire when it is so dry. It's just a contagious thing.
When we're burning pastures and it's this dry, you've really got a problem with burning the root system and that. Plus, it's have a real chance of it getting away, getting into stuff that buildings, timber that you really don't want burnt.
Violet, good girl, good girl. That's good for you. I depend a lot on our local cafe. It's a central meeting location in town.
Okay, we have a caller today, Frank Harper from Sedgwick, Kansas. Frank, what do you want to talk about?
About a month and a half ago, we were trying to get water, in particular the pasture, and we had a dry hole. Getting a dry hole for water, it sheds a little different light on the subject of water.
Now, there's a lot of different ways of watering in the Flint Hills.
How are you? Good, you? Where you say, Eddie? Oh, no, Don, how you doing today?
Well, ask Ed about the 50s. You probably remember the early 50s there.
Yeah, and when did that drought here? Got real bad in about 53 or 4.
Yeah, because the river went dry. We fed cattle off the bridge.
I've got Bob on the phone from Marion, Kansas. What do you have to say?
The thing that worries me about water more than anything is I'm afraid we'll get too much regulation with water. Once you get Uncle Sam, like the EPA, involved in it, and you pass a law that one size fits all, that makes everybody mad. I just hope we can keep them out of it because they've got their hands in about everything anymore.
There are a lot of people that have your same concern, Bob. But you got to understand the EPA's job is to make the waters cleaner and the air cleaner. And so unless you want to change their mandate, they're always going to try to make that happen.
Obviously, we don't want somebody wasting a natural asset. But you can also go too far with regulation and prevent anybody from doing anything then.
And I know there's a lot of worry about this. Well, really, up to this time, government policy has been pretty much if you didn't accept their money, then they don't have a control of that. But it appears right now that there is going to be a change in that policy, and your water that runs off your farm is a concern for somebody else downstream. Thanks for the call, Bob. I have Pat Sobel, a rancher for many years down in the Cedar Point area in Chase County, Kansas. What's the biggest problem you see with water today, Pat?
Well, overuse, I want to say. Irrigation and everything else is using a lot of water. We're using more water than we can produce. I used to say you're going to be allowed 5 gallons of water a day. And if you want to take a shower in it, you can. If you want to poop in it, you can. If you want to drink it, you can. You can't wash your car then, or water your yard. You know, we used to take a bath once a week. And we don't do that now. We take 2 of them a day, huh? And that was way back there. And we weren't the cleanest people in the world. We didn't smell too damn back there 100 years ago, though, did we? Huh? It makes me worry a little bit. I'm gonna be here, I know that. But this problem's growing, and everybody's got to help reduce the way we use water.
Thank you so much for the call, Pat. We do need to think more about conservation and the wise use of water. We'll be back right after this.
It's humbling to me to hear some of the experiences of someone like Pat Sobel, that had maybe seen this creek go dry or this spring not run anymore. The town of Sedgwick is almost the cutoff line for the High Plains Aquifer. Most people think of the Ogallala when they talk about the High Plains Aquifer. The aquifer that is directly over where I live is the Equispeds Aquifer, but it's all part of the High Plains Aquifer. When my friends out west talk about, the shortage of water out there and the challenges that they're dealing with and looking to deal with in the future, it's a little different perspective than what I have as an irrigator in Harvey County, Kansas. This particular pivot, a fairly long pivot, it's about 1,600 foot long. The full circle is about 200 acres. The resource in our particular area is managed by what they call a safe yield. We take out no more than what will naturally recharge. In southwest Kansas or in western Kansas, the reality is with the depletions of the aquifer over time, it is a finite resource. I don't think anybody that put in irrigation or any other type of use out there ever intended to mine the aquifer till it was gone.
Those big circle irrigations out there. Years ago, they should have realized how much water they were taking and not allowed as many of those go in as they have. I think it's a very serious problem.
There's not a lot left here now. The domestic well that supplies this house where Mom and Dad moved back from college in 1970 doesn't allow anybody to live here now. We can't live here because there's no water. There's no domestic water. You can't flush the toilets. You can't water a yard. You can't water a garden.
When we first started developing, or our ancestors or our grandparents' generation started developing for irrigation, being told is inexhaustible supply, well, we've known for at least 40 years that mindset was wrong. We are more efficient than we've ever been, raising more bushels per acre on less gallons of water per acre. The problem is nothing's been done to curb the appetite for water.
We don't need to shut off irrigation, but we certainly need to start dialing back the maximum allowable use. What is stopping the change from happening is money. There's a lot of money in mining water. What happens out here in western Kansas affects the whole state and even the nation, and directly impacts the total food supply globally. But our success is going to be our demise. It's going to run us clear out of this country if we don't balance things. The water rights are becoming held in fewer and fewer, larger and larger hands, and our family's currently in court today trying to protect our water rights. And do you know who's on the other side of that? The other side of that is an oil company.
The neighboring water rights have been impairing our water right for decades, and we're finally standing up to it, and now I'm the one in trouble? I don't understand it.
When you grow up here knowing that the economy is built on irrigated agriculture, and you say anything about changing that in any kind of way, people get very nervous and defensive. We walk around every day with a price on our head. I mean, we've actually received death threats from people very credible and completely have it within their capability of pulling it off. For years I've been told, don't trust Topeka. Don't trust the population centers in the east. The conclusion I've come to is the most conscientious and stewardship-oriented water users out here are the ones getting kicked in the teeth. That threat is far worse to the opportunity of my future generations to live in western Kansas than anything that can be concocted in Topeka or Kansas City or anywhere else. The state of Kansas, as charged by the laws of the state of Kansas that have been on the books since 1945, needs to blow the whistle and call a timeout and help us begin to methodically roll back our maximum allowable water use.
Someday, ultimately, we will get to that bottom, but I would like to think we could make that be in 50 years or 100 years to, by that time, to where we can figure out how to keep living in western Kansas.
People prefer to not think about their water. Let's face it, most of us take it for granted. We turn on the tap and it's there, it's clean, it's pristine, it tastes great, And until it doesn't, we don't think about it. Thanks for the call. We're talking about water this afternoon. Next caller, what do you want to visit about?
Kyle, I think the entire state is connected by water. The communities are also very dependent on the same water resource that's running through each of those towns. And when things get tough and it starts to get drier, those communities start having crises that are immediately just in their own town, but each crisis then creates a new crisis downstream from that. Kyle, we're really going to have to come to terms with how we're consuming water and how quickly we're consuming water. You just can't turn the tap on forever and think that nothing's going to happen. If you couple the dangerously intermittent surface waters that we have in the state of Kansas with an Ogallala aquifer that is not going to replenish itself as fast as we are pumping it, if you exacerbate that with climate change, even a little bit, what might happen with Kansas, if we're not careful, is it will return to the very marginal ecosystem that existed for thousands of years before Western civilization arrived and began practicing agriculture as fast and as intensely as we possibly could.
Well, there's no way we can cover all the aspects about water with one show. I'm sure we'll revisit water again. Thank you for listening. This is Kyle Bauer on KFRM. As drought becomes severe in an area, entire families' legacy can be taken out. You manage as best you can, but when there's no water, nothing grows. And when nothing grows, there's nothing to manage.
Yeah, without water, your whole way of life would cease to exist as you know it today.
It's a very large picture when you're hit by lack of water.
Some people find it difficult to believe that climate change is a reality because it means believing in things that they've never believed in before and giving up some of the ideals that they've held for a lifetime.
I don't think we have any control over it, and I really believe when the good Lord set all this up, that's the way the earth renews itself.
When you think about Kansas, you think about tremendous and abundant resources, sunlight, soil, great grass in the Flint Hills. But the one resource that is not in abundance here is water.
I should probably worry more about that than I do. Well, our kids have water to use when they get to our age.
We sure as hell talking about it. Are we getting anything said?